In today's Retro Style Spotlight, we'll take a look at some interesting ROM hacks of fan favorites, a major retro Elder Scrolls update showcase, an old 90s favorite making a comeback, and a not shit-looking clone system that has just recently been announced. All this and more on today's episode of RSS. Thank you to my patrons who are helping make this show a reality. If you'd like to help support me do this and many new ventures, check out the various ways that you can pledge and donate in the links below. Being a solo creator on their own, every dollar matters. This is also where my cat has decided to sit constantly for like a week. I don't know why. A special thank you to my patrons at the producer level role and above: Alex Dubois, Draconis, Karen Storms, Twistar, Gregory Contoy, and EXO. In the ROM hack report this week, I've got several ROM hacks and a few translations for your amusement. Little Nemo, the NES cult classic, has had a rebalancing patch released by 8-Bit Fan entitled Little Nemo the Dream Master, a Wonderful Wand Edition. This is accomplished by giving the player the wand weapon from the start, streamlining the action platforming aspects of the gameplay, and reducing the cumbersome animal riding parts of the game. Various rebalancing adjustments and improvements have been made to the game as well. The author has even made a few updates since its original release. The list of changes is fairly long, so instead of listing them all, go check out the patch page if you want to learn more. Castlevania Aria of Sorrow on the GBA is up next and has been completely redesigned and can now be considered a completely different game than the original. I'm going to go ahead and put the name of the author and the title of this hack on screen, because as much as I normally try and get through Japanese names and generally do an okay job at, this time around, yeah, screw that. I do not feel confident in that at all. The list of changes reads like it was run through Google Translate from Japanese to English, but basically the game has been redesigned with some upgrades to the original gameplay. Castlevania 5 by XX Belmont XX is a hack of the original Castlevania, featuring all new music, sprites, stage design, a new map screen, and a new ending. It has been 35 years since Simon Belmont's last confrontation with Count Dracula. This time, a group of men with evil intent resurrected Dracula with the brutal sacrifice of a virgin. Slowly, monsters are starting to creep into the countryside and soon into the towns and villages of Transylvania. The Count roams the earth again. Aware of his family's history, Simon's son, Daniel, grabs his ancestral whip and sets off into the darkness to meet his destiny. Finally, getting into the translations this week, Dandy Zuon no Fukatsu, or Dandy the Resurrection of Zuon, is an action RPG title for the Famicom Disk System. See, I can do Japanese just fine sometimes, but I'm sorry dude, but the last patch with the Japanese, that was just insane. The game plays out similar to Zelda and is a fairly short experience, all said and done. Earlier installments were released on other systems like the Commodore 64 and is said to have inspired the Gauntlet series. The translation was released by Super Robo Protector, with contributions made from Agent Orange and Last Boss Killer. Star Cruiser 2: The Odysseus Project is an action role-playing game for the PC 98 that is finally translated into English. Star Cruiser 2 is a sequel to, and this one's a shocker here, a PC 88 title called Star Cruiser. Star Cruiser was also on other systems like the Genesis. The game involves the exploration of various solar systems with multiple characters, alien races, and plot points. It is viewed entirely from a first-person perspective with 3D polygonal graphics which represent environments, trees, buildings, characters, and other objects, including enemies. The gameplay itself is a mixture of various genres. It's a shooter-adventure game with screens where you need to manipulate or find various objects, a simulator, and, to an extent, an RPG with money and upgrade systems. The patch is released by Nebulous Translations, and a lot of care seems to have gone into this project. This is the same team that has translated several other projects that I have covered on this iteration and the previous iteration of RSS, and their work has always been damn good. They've also translated the previous game in the series, and considering this game picks up 5 years after the first with the same protagonist, you might want to check out that game as well. Links to every patch you heard about today will be in the description below as always. I freaking love engine replacements for old games. It's a really awesome way to get older games running on more modern systems, and in the case of games like Doom, for example, really helps the community thrive with things like mods. Well, now, one of gaming's most beloved RPG series of all time has had its second game in the series remastered with its own engine replacement. The Elder Scrolls II Daggerfall is now in Unity and is playable from start to finish. DSO Gaming has released the first stable build of this project, and it's very impressive to me. The first two games were made in DOS, and compared to OpenMW's task of engine porting Morrowind, it does seem like a less daunting task. That said, these games were gigantic for any standard, let alone a DOS standard. According to the description, the coder has spent the last few months playing through the story quest, building out engine support and fixing all the major bugs that he could find, but the development still has a long way to go, especially relating to the spell system. However, thanks to regular contributors to the project, of which there are several, some of the later features on the roadmap are building out ahead of schedule. And there actually do exist mods for the first two games, but given their age and limited architecture, this engine port might be a resurgence for the first two games in the series. Once Game 2 is completed, what's to stop them from taking the same engine and porting in the first title as well? I do believe, especially for older games, that mods do increase the playability of games, but engine level improvements are always best, and given the robust nature of a modern engine, this can now bring in even crazier and more complex modifications from modders, giving this game the legs that the later iterations brought on themselves. I will be very interested to see how this progresses, especially given the popularity of something like OpenMW and the TES Renewal project. I'm going to try something new. Here is the trailer for Tower 57, a mix of Alien Breed and Chaos Engine. This isn't an ad, but instead of talking a bunch about a game, I'm going to just go try a different route of showcasing it and giving you the full unedited trailer. No, it's not an ad, but the game is also available right now in the links below if you are interested. Let me know if you think this tact is useful. I'm just trying a new way to showcase a game because I think the trailer of a game can do a really good job, and in most cases a better job than me. So from now on, I'm not going to go ahead and explain this scenario. I'm just going to go ahead and name the game and then show you the trailer. This is the first time I'm doing this, so let me know if this segment works out or not.
Well, fella, do you know the story when a scientist, a diplomat, a spy, and a bunch of other extraordinary individuals walk into a bar? I mean, steampunk tower-like fortress. Let me tell you, it might be the strangest one you've heard yet. And you know, when a story opens like that, it's gonna end with a bang.
Tamagotchis were a thing in the 90s and stayed around much longer than most remembered. Well, in honor of their 20th anniversary, Bandai is launching a new version of the virtual pet this November for $15 in North America. This will obviously be mostly nostalgia, resembling the original from the 90s, just a bit smaller and with a backlight. If you don't know what I'm talking about because you're too young or you'd like a different way to play around with these, there are Tamagotchi apps for your smartphone available right now. The big story this episode is that Analog is back at it again with their FPGA clone system. This time they're showing off the Super NT, the Super NES big brother to the Analog NT. The Analog NT was in a metal case, more flash, and a higher price tag to boot. Not only did the Super NT ditch the metal case, it also ditched the higher price tag, coming in at $189 instead of at a minimum of $500. While this still does seem like a much steeper price tag compared to an emulation box that accepts cartridges, and the Super NT forgoes the controller, this also plays significantly better than those emulation machines. Obviously, I love emulation. I think it has a vast array of uses. However, the last several 24 machines have come out in the last year or so based on emulation have been, well, I'm just going to be straight up honest with you guys, complete and utter shit. While some better than others, for the most part, they all generally lack that polish. FPGA boards, or Field Programmable Gate Array boards, are much more complicated to produce and get correct, as they are written to target a specific piece of hardware to emulate. Emulate being used a little differently in this context, to just reproduce the original hardware faithfully. So it is a form of emulation, but when all is said and done, the game will think that it's being plugged into an original SNES. This will offer HDMI output, original SNES controller ports so that you can plug in your original SNES pads, and come with Bluetooth built right in to take advantage of modern gaming controllers or an 8-bit DOE controller. While this system will not have save state functions, or at least I can't find any mention of it, it will provide other modern enhancements like aspect ratio preservation, multiple resolution options, artificial scanlines, scaling options, and 48 kHz audio, which the original SNES just couldn't do. This is the first FPGA Super Nintendo, as FPGA boards are really starting to come into their own for the retro gaming community, and Analog did an outstanding, if expensive, job on the Analog NT and the Analog NT Mini NES. Are you interested in getting this machine? I know some of you don't mind going with a company like Retron, but given their really bad track record of shoddy hardware and code stealing, and then not to mention the track record of most every other emulation-based console being poor at best, this ever-growing market does need a third party to step it up in the quality department, and Analog seems to fit that bill. So that was Rich Style Spotlight episode 10. Most everything that you heard about in this episode can be found in the description below. Thank you to all my patrons over at my Patreon campaign. I cannot thank you all enough. Thumbs up the video if you liked it, thumbs it down if you didn't. Leave me a comment in the comment section below on how you think I'm doing and how cute that you think my cat is sleeping right behind me. He's got issues. Remember, freaks and geeks, to play more games, and we'll see you all next time. Have a good day.
Take a bite of that pineapple. Reflect and tell